On this episode of Prairie Prophets, I'm back in Davenport, Iowa. This time to meet up with Dr. Lisa Schulte Moore, who's a professor of natural resource ecology and management at Iowa State University. She's instrumental in the Horizon 2 Climate Smart grant and also leads Sea Change, a consortium for cultivating human and naturally regenerative enterprises. We're going to learn about what Lisa and her students are working on to restore prairie on agricultural lands. Out here in the heartland, where agriculture drives rural economy, we are on the path to a future that not only produces food, but also renewable energy, ecological services, and improved wildlife habitats. I'm on a journey to tell the stories of Horizon 2, a climate-smart future for corn, soybean, livestock, and renewable natural gas production. I'm Brandon Butler, and this is Prairie Prophets. Lisa is a foremost authority on plant and prairie strips and row crop fields. In fact, she was just named a MacArthur Fellow for her body of work. I'm interested in learning what drives her infectious passion. Can you talk a little bit about your academic journey?
When asked in the ninth grade, what do you want to do when you grow up? I said I wanted to be a research biologist.
See, I was still holding on to pro football player.
When I got to the university, it was just, well, I want to take a biology class. And it was my sophomore year where I had to take just a couple extra credits, and I took a plant ecology class. And oh my gosh, it was just like wow, like people actually study the natural world, and like you can have a career where you go outside and you measure stuff, right? And I was just like total mind blown. One, just by learning about how our world is put together. And then secondly, that people could actually pursue a career where that would be their job. They would learn how our natural world is put together. And then also, I've always, I think, coming back to my family history on the farm, this driving knowledge of this relationship between humans and nature. And that's really where I've decided to focus my career. You
were recently awarded a very prestigious MacArthur Fellow. Can you explain what that is and why you received that award?
I can. It's really hard as a Midwesterner. One of the early lessons that I learned as a Midwesterner, right, is that you don't talk too much about yourself, especially not your accomplishments. So that with that caveat.
With the caveat, yes.
But important one if you're a Midwesterner. So the MacArthur Fellowship, it's an amazing recognition of my hard work, of my curiosity, of the innovation that I've been able to pursue in my career. And what the MacArthur Foundation really chose to highlight is sort of like trying to figure out how in our agricultural system that we can keep the land covered throughout the year while also helping farmers make money. That vision of, wouldn't it be cool if in December or January when we were, driving across Iowa that it was green instead of brown? Like, that has been the unflinching vision since I arrived at Iowa State in 2003.
Sea Change has brought collaborating institutions together to build science-based partnerships for meeting 21st century challenges in agriculture, technology, and innovation. Lisa's uncanny ability as a leader brings academics and industry professionals together to seek and apply real-world outcomes.
One of the things I think is really quintessential to the way I do my work is through teamwork, right? And that teamwork might be myself and a graduate student, working together in the lab or on a paper. It could be myself and a few colleagues from different disciplines working together on a problem. It oftentimes is me and a farmer, right? Or groups of scientists and groups of farmers trying to figure out solutions that work on that land. Or it could be, industry like Roeslein Alternative Energy.
And that's led you to be integral leader in two big initiatives. One, the Horizon 2 Climate Smart Grant initiative that we're talking about through this entire series, but also what we're doing here in Iowa the next couple of days, which is Sea Change. Tell us a little bit about Sea Change.
So Sea Change started first in 2018 as an Iowa State University Presidential Interdisciplinary Research Initiative.
I've always wondered what the C stands for.
Yeah, consortium for cultivating human and naturally regenerative enterprises.
I see why we call it Sea Change.
Exactly, exactly. But we settled on that because it was kind of a quadruple entendre. So the C can stand for, in some instances, we're talking about climate change. In other incidences, we're talking about how we're dissatisfied with how much of scientific effort, how much of the academic literature just stays in the scientific journals. It never makes it out to actually benefit society. And so we wanted to see change in academia. We wanted to sort of we wanted to invigorate our colleagues to not only do science for science sake, but actually science in service of society and trying to communicate that science in a way that made it more readily, usable by non-scientists. And then the last sort of meaning behind Sea Change is we're also sort of dissatisfied with the pace of change, right? We know that in terms of human-environment relations, yeah, there are some things that are getting better, but those things are actually pretty slow to happen. And so we're hoping here in the Midwest, even though we're very far from any coast, we're hoping we'll get a sea change in terms of adoption of things like strategically integrated prairie on the landscape, right? Adoption in terms of those winter hardy cover crops and incorporating those into operations. Adoptions in terms of using things like biofertilizers rather than fossil-based fertilizers, right? A sea change into creating more sustainable, more regenerative, more circular agricultural systems here in the Midwest.
As Lisa's graduate students and colleagues working on Sea Change make presentations at this event, it becomes clear how these processes are being implemented, as we saw at Seaver's Farm for the Horizon 2 initiative. So Lisa Schulte Moore's quite a dynamo.
Yeah.
Talk about working with her and her leadership of the Sea Change program.
I feel very fortunate because I started at Iowa State in 2003. Lisa also started that fall. So we got to know one another at that time and started collaborating on the Prairie Strips project. And so, I've had, as I said, the good fortune to be able to really have a great collaborator, a great scientist to work with, also, a friend and somebody to really look up to in the way that she handles things and the energy she brings to any project she's working on. And so I think, with the Sea Change, it's just kind of more of that, bringing that energy, thinking about how we envision the landscape of Iowa or Midwestern landscapes.
Oh, I love working with her. Yeah, I've been working with her in the Strips project, looking at soil health changes under a narrow contour prairie strip, but also how that affects the surrounding soils.
What are some of your initial thoughts on the Horizon 2 Climate Smart Grant that we're working on?
I think it's a really exciting time to be in on this, the potential to put more prairie in the landscape and make it productive and profitable for farmers. I think it seems like it has great potential.
Lisa is great. She has a vision. I know she deeply, sincerely wants to see change on the land. She wants to leave the world in a better place for her children and for their children. So she's got a lot of energy, and I think she's got a good vision. It takes a lot of maneuvering to make these things happen, but yeah, I think she's well suited to the role.
What does a brighter future in agriculture look like for you?
So for me, a brighter future for agriculture is for farmers to be able to earn a living, grow their crop. We can have more habitat for wildlife. We can have cleaner water. We can have renewable fuels, and that we are helping make the whole country better because we're able to do it here in Iowa. I'd like to see Iowa lead the way in mitigating issues concerning climate change. We can do that. Healthy Iowa, healthy agriculture, they're the same thing, right? And that's what I would like to see for the future of this state.
Great to see you. Yeah, looking forward today. Look at all these lovely people. Hey, lady. So glad that you could make it. Great to have you here. Awesome, awesome. Hope you learn.
The amount of respect everyone I spoke with conveyed for Lisa highlights why she is so critical to the movement of restoring Prairie to agricultural landscapes.
Good morning, everyone. On behalf of Rudy Roeslein Alternative Energy, make a few introductions. Everyone, of course, knows Lisa Schulte Moore, so thank you for bringing this esteemed group of students, professors, scientists, researchers. We also have a few folks in the crowd that are here with the new USDA grant that Rudy and the Roeslein team have put together. That's the Horizon 2 Climate Smart Commodities grant program. That's an $80 million grant program that we are implementing at the present time.
The intellectual and can-do capacity that we have here represented in the group, the networks that we have represented in the group, and then the other thing I just want to say thank you to Brian for being willing to host us here today. When I called and said, I think I want to have a field day, and he's like, okay. In November, yeah? At your farm. He's like, oh. You know, his vision, starting with anaerobic digestion. When were the first digesters? 2014 on the farm?
2013.
2013, okay. Had it off by 1 year, it was close. You know, and then adding on the partnership, the very powerful partnership that Roeslein brings to this whole effort, and of course Rudy's grand vision of being able to restore 30 million acres of prairie in the Midwest through a market-based solution, right? I mean, we're at the ground floor here of a really grand vision.
Even though I've been to Seaver's Farm numerous times, it's inspiring to see it again through the eyes of so many engaged academics and industry professionals.
This process is really complicated, right? So it's really amazing to have, need a lot of expertise to be able to put it together and run it. But it takes base energy, so feedstock, right? You're gonna start with a feedstock. And so then the next thing it takes is time, right? So the bugs need actually time to chew up that feedstock and produce the gas.
Over the last 100 or 150 years, through the Industrial Revolution into the technological revolution, we've made a lot of mistakes as a global society, but it's fun now to see the advancements we're making in correcting those mistakes. What is it about Prairie that makes it so special and so crucial to clean water, clean air, and healthy soil?
You know, when we think about how we can really support human society is what would nature do, right? You know, it's foundational to our wealth here in the Midwest is our amazing, deep, rich, fertile soil. You're Americans, the people that live here today, have figured out how to make that soil productive for our current society, but those soils were actually built by the prairie, right? Through eons, and the combination of those diverse native perennial plants as well as fire. So through the combination of plants, the other organisms that were dependent on the prairie, and we haven't talked about sort of the insects or the microbes below ground that do a lot of cool work as well. And that fire is what built, really the foundation of our wealth today. So this is an establishing prairie, right? Why prairie? Well, historically in this part of the world, prairie covered about 85% of the state of Iowa, right? And now in terms of our native prairies that were here at the time of Euro-American settlement of the U.S., there's about 0.5% left in small little remnant patches. And why did the settlers do that? Well, they didn't know how to make use of that prairie, right? It was a knowledge gap. And so they turned the land into something that they knew how to use at that time. But we've learned a lot, since the mid-1800s, right? And we're learning more all the time about how prairie is useful.
Lisa is teaching the field day participants about Prairie recently established at sievers that will serve as a feedstock for anaerobic digesters in the near future. Just 2 months ago, I visited this same prairie while it was still in bloom with Connor Woods, a conservation coordinator with Roeslein Alternative Energy.
Connor, the sole purpose of this prairie that we planted was to provide a feedstock in the future for our digester facility. And, how far away do you think we are from starting to harvest this as a potential feedstock?
Typically, they say prairie needs 3 years of establishment time because they grow down before they grow up. But it doesn't mean that we can't trial it year 2, not the whole thing, but maybe sections of it.
Sure.
To see what type of biomass and biomethane potential we're getting starting from year 2.
Okay, wonderful. And of course we want to, keep in mind habitat and nesting seasons and those things that are important to the ecological services we can provide, as well as the environmental benefits and hopefully economic benefits.
Timing is everything, along with, you're a row crop farmer yourself, and so we've got to watch out for our wildlife, keeping that in the back of our mind before we do any management practice.
Sievers Prairie is on track to provide incredible yields of biomass, a testament to sound science and good ag practices. I'll be excited to see how robust it is next summer.
So what you're looking at here, I see a lot of switchgrass and annual weeds. Brian's mowed it. Is 35 acres in total. Brian's mowed it a few times this summer to keep those annual weeds at bay, right? To allow the native perennial prairie plants to actually establish. When we think about native perennials, we think about, in the first year, they have to establish that root system. We say that they kind of sleep. There's lots of activity happening below ground, but you can't really see much above ground. Year 2, you'll see much more of an expression of prairie in this place if you come back out here next summer. We say in the second year, prairies are kind of creeping along. And by year 3, you will see a very dramatic expression of our native prairie plants here. We say that prairies leap in the 3rd year. And so the idea here is that once these prairies are established, we can start harvesting that biomass. And prairie is a disturbance adapted community, right? So you can harvest the biomass, and the prairie plants are still, well established below ground, and then use that biomass as an energy source in the system.
When they express themselves in year 3 and 4, and you're walking around and these bees are buzzing and these flowers and these butterflies are there, it's something that recharges my soul. And I wish every city kid that is involved in all the things that I see happening, the deterioration of our cities, could get out and have that experience, because I think it would have a huge impact on society. And so I don't know how to put a price tag to that, but there is a value to it that I think getting people out and exposed to this is important, that we get these people out here and actually get them to understand what we're trying to do.
Lisa's field day was a resounding success. There is so much energy growing around prairie restoration and agricultural lands. With the implementation of the Horizon 2 grant, the landscape of Iowa and North Missouri may be unrecognizable in the coming years. Now that we've been selected as a recipient of one of the Climate Smart grants, can you talk about Horizon 2?
And I'm just really thankful for the number of people that are leaning in, trying to anaerobically digest cover crops and native prairie grasses along with manure to create renewable natural gas and address, what I've been trying to do since I arrived at Iowa State, which is, keep the ground covered while also replacing fossil natural gas with renewable natural gas. energy demanded already by our society. So Horizon 2 is cool because, it gives us the kind of resources we need to really, pilot these concepts we've been researching and actually really do it. There's going to be bumps in the road, and to be able to have that federal investment to smooth out some of those bumps and to have that 5-year time horizon to be able to really figure out how to put the system together in a way that will not only benefit the land, but also figure out how to make it beneficial to farmers. Because the only way this is going to work is if, farmers are on board.
Lisa ended the event back in the classroom where students, professors, and others involved in agriculture debriefed from the field trip. The in-depth discussions produced numerous thoughts and plans that will surely impact our Horizon 2 efforts.
I know that we have the capacity in this room and with the people that we're connected to start putting numbers around those. Like you can't walk into a policymaker and just talk about a vision and expect them to legislate around a vision. They actually need numbers. And it's my hope that this group of incredibly bright scientists can help us in terms of getting some of the numbers around here so we can address not only greenhouse gas emissions, but we can address what are the water quality benefits here. We can address what kind of habitat are we creating for our native biodiversity that we know just continues to decline despite billions of dollars, $2 billion per year that gets spent on the Conservation Reserve Program. It's not enough. It's a heck of a lot of money. It is not enough. We're not changing the trajectory of biodiversity loss in this country, right? I'm getting a little bit emotional here, but it's because I'm really passionate about this. But I think we do have the capacity to provide some of these answers. It is our duty, the taxpayers of the U.S., USDA has invested in us because they believe that we can provide the answers to the kinds of questions that society is demanding. So let's do it.
With a leader like Lisa to guide the scientific efforts of landscape ecology on agricultural lands throughout the Midwest, it's easy to believe our greatest days are still ahead. As we embark on the Horizon 2 journey, we will face challenges and setbacks, but ultimately the efforts will be successful. With Lisa leading the way, how could you doubt it?